going to take last minute to have more room for the questions. Well, good morning to everyone from Santiago, Chile. Thanks, Osmany, for the invitation to discuss these two very interesting and challenging presentations. And many thanks, of course, to Leslie and Olivier for sharing with us your ideas and thoughts about policy diffusion and global health in times of COVID-19. I would like to share with you some comments, ideas, examples, and questions which emerge from the presentation. Well, regarding to Leslie's reflections, thank you for presenting to us all the trackers and websites with information about COVID and the policy responses. It's very interesting when we see all the available information. Besides this, I agree with your main idea, the paradox of the diffusion, and I think it's very clever. I really like it. Your statement made me think whether the policy process requires certain normal circumstances to work, or in other words, policy diffusion doesn't work under crisis. We have been studying and discussing about diffusion, transfer, and circulation of policies in this network from our first conference in 2016. And I think that we were all the time analyzing the process under the normal circumstances. Does it mean we have to reframe our questions and frameworks for understanding policy diffusion on crisis? Do the role of the actor change? What happened with the mechanisms of diffusion? And I am thinking on coercion, emulation, learning, or competition, the traditional ones. I think that, for example, we could have expected to observe in some countries the mechanism of emulation. Considering governments have to take fast decisions, they could emulate as an option. Probably we have some cases. However, as Les mentioned, it wasn't the general pattern. And in the case of the South, we were observing the situation in the North, and we were watching our futures in the news 2 or 3 weeks in the future. We could expect that governments emulate, or even better, learn. But lamentably, in general terms, they did not. About some of the resources or factors Leslie argues to explain this paradox, I agree with all. And I would like to do some comments about 3 of them. He mentions global pandemic but local characteristics. This is a very clear statement in the case of developing countries. Inequality, weak states, the absence of a robust social protection system affect in a significant way the capacity of government to offer a rapid and effective answer to the crisis. The structural difference among levels of development and the robustness of the state are constitutive reasons that influence the diverse answer to the pandemic. In that sense, and coming back to the former, probably Latin American countries cannot emulate nor even learn due to these structural conditions in this crisis. Therefore, the public policies to face the crisis are highly determined by the local characteristics, as Leslie mentioned. Obviously, these conditions existed before. Then what is different? I think, and it's a quick answer, that time is a key element. In some of the cases of policy diffusion we have observed, those processes occur in an extended period of time, probably more than the COVID crisis. In addition, the personal role of some actors, expert, epistemic communities, citizen expert, policy ambassador, is another relevant element. However, those actors need time to influence in the dissemination of ideas, policy programs, etc. Therefore, time and the type of actors and their resources are 2 factors which could also explain why, despite of the structural difference, we can observe diffusion under normal circumstances, for instance, in Latin America, and not under crisis. This is just also a preliminary idea, of course. Regarding to the discredit to the international organizations, I can add, at least for Latin America, the critical moment of the regional organizations. UNASUR has almost disappeared, and PROSUR is not developing any role in this crisis. In this region, we are facing the discredit and the almost null role of the regional organization. This lack of cooperation is related to the competitive responses and the useless strategy of comparison that Les mentioned. Countries are competing among them, showing the numbers and the measures taken. We have a pathetic example between Chile and Argentina some weeks ago, when the President Fernandez compared the situation with Chile, and the Chilean government complained about it. It was almost a problem of foreign policy in the middle of this terrible process. Okay, the reflections of Leslie are highly connected with Olivier's presentation. He explains in detail the current situation of the World Health Organization and proposes a complete restructuration of the organization based on 6 points. His main argument is the WHO is the only forum where all the countries of the world can converge toward common public health objectives. In addition, and in the context of the crisis, he asked, what do we need for WHO? And he answered, a strengthened authority in emergency situations. He proposed a governance reform that could restore WHO institutional leadership in global health governance with these 6 measures. I would like to mention them again, just to sum up his proposal. Strengthening the international health regulation, reducing WHO financial dependence on voluntary contributions, decompartmentalizing the organization and restoring the authority to the director, building an IPCC for global health, strengthening non-state actor participation in the governance of WHO, and toward health security governance, bringing global health and the environment. His proposal is very robust and complete, and it also demonstrates his profound knowledge about the organization. In that sense, I agree with all that. As you mentioned, Olivier, this is a normative proposal, and I would like to expect reforms in that direction. Therefore, I only have some questions. Under what circumstances can we expect a favorable context to push those reforms? Which actors are key to do that? Is this pandemic this opportunity? You mentioned the reforms occur after a previous global crisis previously. Therefore, can we expect some changes post-COVID-19? What is your projection at this moment? And finally, connecting with Leslie's presentation, what should be the role of the WHO on the diffusion of policies related to COVID or any other pandemic? I know that there are too many questions. However, I really appreciate that these 2 presentations allow us to think about all these. Thank you very much.